The Lyran people were once a proud and noble race. Their cities shone like crystal towers under bright suns, and their voices carried wisdom and music that other civilizations envied. Across the galaxy, their minds were admired, their technology respected, and their art treasured. Yet admiration turned to envy, and respect shifted into suspicion. The Jural whispered that the Lyrans were arrogant. The Keth claimed they were spies, dangerous and cunning. Even the Thirax, who had once shared trade and knowledge with them, turned cold. They said the Lyrans carried danger in their very blood. It was not true. The Lyrans were not dangerous, nor were they cruel. They had never struck a neighbor, never lied to a friend. But words once spoken by those in power became law. The galaxy decided the Lyrans were to be exiled. Ships were driven from every port, families crammed into small transports carrying what little they could salvage from homes now forbidden. Borders shut tight and warnings echoed across the stars. Do not give the Lyrans shelter. Do not trust them. Let them wander. The Lyrans wandered. They drifted from system to system, pleading for ports, for food, for mercy. But there was none. Space stations refused them docking. Freighters ignored their hails, and colonies that had once traded warmly with them now sent armed patrols to keep them away. Slowly, hope began to die. Admiral Kalen stood on the bridge of his last remaining flagship, the Seraphim. Around him, children pressed their faces against the cold viewports, watching stars streak past like endless tears. Mothers held babies tightly, rocking them back and forth, singing soft lullabies to drown out their own despair. The elders huddled in quiet corners, clutching thin blankets, muttering prayers to gods that had long seemed distant. Kalen's heart ached. He had led fleets to discovery, negotiated peace between warring worlds, and shared knowledge that could have saved civilizations. Yet now he could do nothing to save his own people. He had tried diplomacy, trade, even pleading for asylum, but every door had been slammed in their faces. Every council had refused them. Every neighbor had turned their eyes away. The Lyrans were not a weak people, but desperation makes even the strongest falter. Starship engines hummed softly in empty corridors as supplies dwindled. Families survived on ration packs meant for emergencies. Water was precious, fuel even more so, and food was measured in strict portions. Yet even in the midst of hunger and cold, a quiet dignity remained. The Lyrans would not steal, would not beg beyond what was polite. They were a proud people, clinging to the fragments of their dignity even as the galaxy rejected them. Still, the children asked questions that no adult could answer. "Why do they hate us?" a young girl asked one evening, her small face pressed against Kalen's arm. The Admiral's eyes, usually so steady, filled with tears he refused to show. I do not know, little one," he said. "But remember, our worth is not measured by their fear. We are Lyran. That is enough." Night after night, Kalen would walk the empty decks, listening to the hum of the engines and the soft cries of those he could not save. He thought of the worlds that had once welcomed them, the friends who had smiled and trusted them. Now all of it was gone. All that remained were whispers of memory and the ache of exile. In a small observation room, the children drew pictures of worlds they had never seen. One drew a garden full of flowers glowing under twin suns. Another sketched a house with a warm fire and laughing family. Kalen looked at these drawings and felt both sorrow and hope. These children carried the future of the Lyran people. If they could survive the coldness of the galaxy, they might one day reclaim a place among the stars. But hope alone does not feed the hungry. Kalen walked to the bridge and stared at the endless void outside. Somewhere out there, somewhere in the galaxy, there had to be a place where they would be welcomed. Somewhere out there, perhaps a civilization would not judge them for what they were, but see the worth in their hearts. He had to believe that. The Lyrans were exiled by all. Every door they knocked on was closed. Every plea was ignored. Every star system seemed determined to erase them from memory. And yet, amid despair, a fragile spark remained. Perhaps somewhere beyond the endless black, there was still a chance. Perhaps somewhere there was someone who would see the Lyrans not as exiles, but as people deserving of mercy, kindness, and a home. For now they drifted. The hum of their ships, the soft whispers of the children, and the quiet determination of Kalen were all that held the Lyrans together. They were weary, hungry, and broken, but not defeated. Not yet. The galaxy had abandoned them. But deep in Kalen's heart, a single thought lingered. Somewhere someone will answer. Some door is still open, and when it opens, we will step through. The Lyran fleet drifted through a lonely stretch of space, the stars outside pale and distant. Supplies were running low and morale even lower. Children whispered about empty stomachs, and the elders spoke quietly, hoping the young would not hear their despair. Admiral Kalen stood on the bridge of the Seraphim, staring at the endless darkness, trying to find a way, any way to bring his people hope. Every system they tried refused them. They sent signals, hails, messages, begging for help. Each time the response was silence, or worse, cold rejection. Some systems even warned them not to approach, calling the Lyrans dangerous, cursed, or unworthy. It was a galaxy united in its condemnation. Kalen felt the weight of failure pressing down on him. He had once believed in the fairness of the stars. He had thought that reason and honesty could open doors, but doors slammed in their faces, and the galaxy had turned its back on his people. One evening, as the fleet drifted near a cluster of asteroid fields, a sudden signal cut through the static. It was faint but deliberate. "This is the Terran vessel Resolute. You are in distress. Identify yourselves." The word Terran caused Kalen's heart to skip. Terrans, humans, Deathworlders, were known across the galaxy as fierce, stubborn, and unpredictable. Other species often whispered fearfully about them, claiming they were reckless and dangerous. They were outsiders, not gentle diplomats like the Lyrans. Why would a Terran ship respond to them? Kalen hesitated, unsure if it was a trap. The fleet had grown weary of hope, and fear had become second nature. "Admiral Kalen," he muttered to himself, "remember, even if it is, we cannot refuse help when the universe has turned its back." With steady hands, he activated the comm. His voice, though calm, carried the tremor of a leader who had seen too much loss. "This is Admiral Kalen of the Lyran people. We are without a home. We have no allies left. We ask only for shelter and safety." For a long moment there was silence. Then the human voice returned, calm and firm. "You are heard, Admiral. Prepare to dock. You are safe now. We will not turn away those in need." A strange warmth swept through Kalen's chest. Could it be true? Could there be a civilization that did not judge them for their exile? Could there be a people willing to see their worth, not their supposed crimes? He did not trust hope easily anymore, but the trembling spark in his heart refused to die. The fleet followed the coordinates given by the Resolute. As they approached, the human ships shimmered in the void, not with menace, but with an organized strength that radiated confidence. Kalen felt awe and fear mingling in his chest. These were beings who had faced unimaginable challenges, worlds that sought to crush them, yet they stood ready to offer help. When docking procedures began, humans moved quickly but carefully, guiding the Lyran vessels into place. It was a small gesture, yet it carried meaning. They were not merely tolerated, they were welcomed. Children clutched their mothers' hands, wide-eyed at the strange humans. Their uniforms and tools unfamiliar but not frightening. A young Lyran boy, no older than 7, whispered to Kalen, "Are they going to hurt us?" Kalen knelt to meet the boy's eyes. "No," he said softly. "They are not like the others. These people, they will not harm us. Trust them, little one." The first humans to board carried supplies, water, food, and blankets. They spoke in a language that the Lyrans only partly understood, but kindness was universal. Mothers watched as their children were given warm meals, and elders were offered chairs, pillows, and reassurance. For the first time in weeks, the Lyrans felt a fragile sense of relief. Kalen moved through the crowd, observing quietly. These humans were not grand diplomats or rulers. They were ordinary people doing extraordinary things. They shared what they had, offered words of comfort, and made space for the Lyrans as if they belonged. That night, Kalen stood on the observation deck staring at the stars, listening to the soft hum of the human ship around them. He felt something he had almost forgotten. Hope. Not the false hope of doors that would slam shut, but real hope, the kind born from seeing hands extended in kindness when no one else would reach. The human captain, a tall woman with gray streaks in her hair and eyes that seemed to see straight into one's heart, approached him quietly. "You're safe here," she said. "Rest, eat, sleep. We'll take care of the rest." Kalen nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. "Why?" he asked simply. "Why help us when everyone else has abandoned us?" The captain smiled gently. "Because we have known exile too. We have been outsiders, hunted, underestimated. When someone needs help, we do not turn away. That is what we do." Kalen felt tears burn behind his eyes. For so long he had carried the weight of his people's despair alone. For so long hope had seemed like a cruel joke. And yet here it was, fragile and luminous, offered by a people he had feared would be enemies. As the Lyran children fell asleep that night, wrapped in blankets they had not dared to dream of before, Kaelin stood in silence. The galaxy had rejected them. Every door had closed, every world had turned away. But for the first time in months, the Lyrans were not alone. Somewhere in the stars, someone had answered their cries. And that someone was human. The Lyran's brief taste of safety and warmth spread quickly through their minds, but the galaxy beyond the human fleet had not forgotten. Messages came like dark clouds across the void, threats, warnings, and whispered fears. The Jural Council broadcasted, "Do not harbor the Lyrans. Expel them immediately or face the consequences." The Keth sent sharper words, hissing like venom. "The Lyrans are cursed. Abandon them, or your civilization will suffer." Even worlds that had once been allies of humanity sent cautious signals, urging restraint and warning that helping the exiles could bring disaster. Kaelin received each message in silence, his chest heavy with dread. His people had found hope, comfort, and even a sense of belonging within the human ship. Yet the galaxy's judgment pressed against them like a storm. He turned to Captain Reyes, eyes shadowed with worry. "The galaxy does not want us here," he said quietly. "They will force your people to choose between safety and mercy. I cannot ask you to risk that." Reyes stood firm, her posture calm and unwavering. "Your people are not a risk," she said gently. "They are victims. They have suffered more than anyone deserves. Humanity will not abandon them. But the threats," Kaelin began, "if the other civilizations act against you, will your fleet survive?" "Will your people?" Reyes met his eyes with a steady gaze. "We survive because we stand together, Admiral. Not because we are stronger, but because we refuse to bow to fear. We will not let those who abandoned you dictate our actions." Kaelin swallowed hard. He had never seen such courage. Not in the halls of diplomacy, not in the heat of negotiation, and certainly not in the exile of his own people. And yet here it stood, unwavering, offered freely by beings who had no reason to risk themselves for outsiders. Among the Lyrans, fear whispered its way back into hearts and minds. Children clutched blankets more tightly. Mothers pressed their babies closer, and elders muttered prayers under their breaths. They had known the cruelty of the galaxy before, and they knew it would not wait. The Jural, the Keth, the Thirax all had power. All had fleets. All had influence. Humanity's promise was strong. But could it endure the weight of the universe? Kaelin felt a mixture of gratitude and guilt. His people had been saved, yet he could not shake the thought that he might be putting another civilization in danger. He walked through the crowded halls, observing Lyrans eating, laughing softly, or simply resting in peace. He saw children who had not smiled in weeks and mothers who had not known comfort in months. He saw hope reborn, and he knew the galaxy would try to snuff it out. Meanwhile, human leaders convened on the Resolute. Holograms flickered in the war room, showing reports from distant systems. Some urged caution. "Do not challenge the Jural or Keth. Their fleets could devastate our borders. Expel the Lyrans before this escalates." Others argued for mercy and principle. "We have known exile and rejection ourselves. If we turn our backs now, we betray everything we have fought for. We protect those in need, no matter the cost." Captain Reyes listened to both sides with her usual calm. When the debate grew heated, she finally spoke. "Our people have survived the impossible. We face worlds that would see us crushed, yet we endure. This is no different. The Lyrans came to us for help. We do not abandon those who have no one else. That is our choice. That is who we are." Kaelin overheard this from a side corridor and felt a warmth that had almost faded. Humanity did not promise safety out of convenience or fear. It promised it out of principle. They were outsiders, yes, and yet they had chosen to stand with his people, even when the rest of the galaxy demanded otherwise. Despite the kindness around them, the Lyrans could not escape the shadows of doubt. Every message, every warning reminded them that the universe had not changed. Exile was still a word that carried weight. The galaxy still judged them, feared them, and sought to erase them. But within the human fleet, the Lyrans also discovered a new feeling: courage. Not the reckless courage of battle, but the quiet courage to survive, to stand for what is right and to trust that others could too. Mothers whispered to their children, "Do not be afraid. We are safe here, and those who protect us will not let harm come. Elders nodded slowly, their eyes shining with unshed tears. Even Kalen felt a seed of hope grow stronger. That night the stars outside the Resolute seemed brighter. Perhaps it was not the stars themselves, but the sense of determination that had filled the vessel's halls. Humanity had chosen to protect the exiles. Humanity had chosen to stand against fear, threats, and the judgment of the galaxy. And for the first time, the Lyrans understood what it meant to have an ally who would not falter. Kalen stood at the observation deck, watching the lights of distant worlds. He whispered quietly to himself, a prayer not to the gods but to possibility. The galaxy may be cruel, but we are not alone. Someone has answered our call, and perhaps together, we can face whatever comes next. The Lyrans slept that night with hearts lighter than they had carried in months. The galaxy might still condemn them, and danger might still loom on the horizon, but for now, hope had taken root. Somewhere beyond the stars, the universe had been challenged, not by weapons or fleets, but by mercy, courage, and the simple, unyielding choice to stand by those who had been abandoned. And in that choice, the Lyrans began to believe that survival, and perhaps even a future, was possible. The calm did not last long. The warnings and threats from the galaxy escalated into action. Scouts detected a Keth war fleet approaching human space at alarming speed. Hundreds of warships, sleek and deadly, moved like a shadow across the stars. Their commander's message was clear. Hand over the exiles or your civilization will be destroyed. Panic stirred among the Lyrans. Mothers clutched their children, whispering desperate prayers. Elders muttered warnings of doom and failure. The weight of exile, the fear of rejection, pressed down on them once more. Kalen felt a cold knot of fear tighten in his chest. Their people were broken, their ships fragile, and their fleets weak. He turned to Captain Reyes, his voice trembling, though he tried to hide it. We cannot fight them. They are too many. You must leave them behind. Reyes shook her head firmly. No, she said. We do not abandon those who have no one else. Your people came to us when the galaxy had turned away. We will not let you face this storm alone. Kalen swallowed hard, feeling both awe and dread. Humanity had faced impossible odds before. They were survivors of worlds too harsh for ordinary beings, warriors of death worlds who had learned to endure and overcome. Yet even knowing this, the sight of the Keth fleet filled him with terror. The difference in numbers was overwhelming. Still, the human crews moved with quiet efficiency. Ships bristled with defensive systems, shields activated, and battle stations hummed to life. Children and elders were moved to the safest parts of the vessels. Every human on board, from seasoned soldiers to engineers, took their position with determination. They were ready, not only to fight but to protect the Lyrans at all costs. As the first Keth ships appeared on the sensors, the calm of space shattered. Beams of energy streaked across the void, slamming into human shields. Explosions shook the decks, lighting up corridors in harsh flashes. The Lyrans clutched each other, eyes wide with fear, while the humans moved with practiced precision, their courage unyielding. Kalen watched, heart pounding, as the humans faced the storm without hesitation. Every attack that struck the Resolute was met with strategy, countermeasures, and fierce retaliation. It was not the largest fleet that won the battle, but the strength of will and the refusal to yield. A young Lyran child, watching the battle from a safe compartment, tugged on his mother's sleeve. Will they die? He whispered. The mother held him close, her voice trembling but firm. No, they fight because they care for us. They will not let harm come to our people. Trust them, little one. Kalen felt a surge of pride and gratitude so intense it brought tears to his eyes. These humans, outsiders in the galaxy and strangers to his people only hours ago, were now willing to face death to protect them. They fought not for glory, not for conquest, but for mercy, honor, and the lives of the exiles. Hours passed like minutes as the battle raged. The Keth warships were relentless, their numbers vast, but the humans adapted, countered, and struck with precision. When one ship fell, another human vessel took its place without hesitation. Kalen's breath caught as he saw human pilots dive between blasts to shield smaller Lyran transports, maneuvering with bravery that bordered on reckless. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the Keth commander realized the humans would not yield. One by one, their ships broke formation, retreating into the darkness. The threat had not been destroyed entirely, but it had been driven away. Humanity had held the line, defending a people they barely knew from a force that the galaxy feared. When the battle ended, silence filled the human vessel. Smoke cleared from damaged ships, alarms ceased, and a cautious calm returned. Kalen moved through the corridors, observing the faces of his people. Exhaustion, relief, and awe were written on every face. Mothers embraced children. Elders nodded with quiet gratitude. And even the young Lyrans, who had hidden under benches and in corners, peeked out to see the survivors. Kalen approached Captain Reyes, who had stood on the bridge the entire time, calm and commanding. His voice was hoarse with emotion. I do not know how to thank you, he said. You faced them for us, strangers that we are. The galaxy abandoned us, but you— Reyes smiled, a mixture of pride and humility in her eyes. You do not need to thank us, Admiral. We do what is right. Your people trusted us, and we would not break that trust. The galaxy may turn its back, but we do not. For the Lyrans, the battle was more than survival. It was proof. Proof that mercy could be stronger than fear, that courage could outweigh numbers, and that kindness could inspire loyalty and protection beyond all expectation. For weeks they had wandered in despair, abandoned by all, and now, for the first time, they understood the meaning of true allies. That night, Kalen walked through the halls of the human ship. He watched children sleep peacefully for the first time in months. He saw mothers sharing stories and elders whispering songs of their homeland. He realized that the humans had not merely saved their lives. They had restored their hope, given them courage, and shown them that even in a galaxy filled with judgment and cruelty, there were those willing to fight for what was right. The Lyrans had been exiled by all, condemned by the galaxy, and abandoned by countless civilizations. Yet humanity had stepped forward, open-armed, unwavering, and fierce in protection. The Lyrans understood then that they were not just guests. They were part of something larger, something powerful, something that could not be broken by fear. Kalen looked out at the stars again, whispering quietly a vow to himself and his people. We will survive. We will rebuild. And we will honor those who chose to stand with us when no one else would. The battle had ended, but the echoes of the fight lingered in every corridor of the Resolute. Smoke and scorched metal reminded the Lyrans of how close they had come to annihilation. Yet now the quiet that followed was not empty. It was filled with a fragile, glowing sense of hope. For the first time in months, maybe even years, the Lyrans felt that the galaxy was not entirely hostile, that they might finally have a place where they belonged. Admiral Kalen moved among his people, watching as mothers comforted children who had never slept so peacefully. Elders exchanged glances of relief and gratitude. Even the young ones, once silent and fearful, laughed softly as they played with small toys humans had offered, or peeked at the stars through viewports with awe rather than dread. Kalen felt tears prick his eyes. For so long, he had led his people through despair, navigating a galaxy that had rejected them at every turn. And now at last he saw a glimmer of the future, a chance for his people to live without fear. Captain Reyes approached him quietly. We can offer you Earth, she said, her voice steady. It is safe, its worlds are habitable, and its people are willing to help you start again. You will not be treated as exiles there. You will be free to rebuild your lives, your culture, and your future. Kalen felt a surge of emotion. The galaxy had abandoned them, called them cursed, and closed every door. And yet here was a civilization willing to offer not just survival, but dignity and home. He bowed his head slightly, voice heavy with gratitude. I cannot find words. We were exiled by all, condemned and forsaken. And yet you— Reyes smiled softly. We do not do this for praise, Admiral. We do this because it is right. You came to us when no one else would listen. You sought help when the universe turned away, and we answered. That is enough. The Lyrans boarded the transport ships to Earth with a mixture of awe and disbelief. They had imagined cities, fields, and mountains, but nothing could have prepared them for the beauty and abundance they found. Green forests stretched endlessly under pale blue skies. Rivers sparkled like threads of silver, and the air was filled with scents that spoke of life, growth, and renewal. It was nothing like the cold, mechanical corridors of their drifting ships. It was warmth, safety, and promise in one. Children ran across open fields laughing and shrieking with joy. Mothers followed, calling softly, smiling through tears, while elders simply stood, watching, their hearts full with gratitude and wonder. Kalen felt a lump in his throat. His people had walked through exile, despair, and near starvation, and now at last they were free. He walked alongside Captain Reyes as she showed him the spaces prepared for Lyran families. Houses had been readied, schools established, and even places for cultural gatherings marked out. Humanity had not offered charity. They had offered partnership, respect, recognition of the Lyran's worth. Kalen's chest swelled with pride for his people, and with profound gratitude for these humans who had given them a second chance. That evening, Kalen stood on a hill overlooking the settlement. Children's laughter drifted up on the wind. Birds flew across the sky. The soft rustle of trees reminded him of the worlds the Lyrans had lost. And yet, here was a chance to grow again, to rebuild, to teach the next generation that hope could exist even after exile and betrayal. He turned to Captain Reyes. "We will never forget this. You gave us more than safety. You gave us home. You gave our people the chance to dream again." Reyes placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then dream, Admiral. Build, learn, grow. And when the day comes that humanity faces darkness, stand with us as we have stood with you. That is the way of family." For Kalen, those words struck deep. Family. It was a word he had once thought meaningless in the cold expanse of the galaxy. But here, with humans who had risked everything for his people, he understood its true meaning. Not bound by blood or birth, but by courage, loyalty, and the unyielding choice to protect and care for one another. In the days that followed, the Lyrans began to rebuild their lives. They planted gardens, shared stories of their lost worlds, and taught their children songs and traditions that had almost been forgotten. The humans worked alongside them, offering tools, knowledge, and friendship. Slowly, a new culture began to take shape, a blending of two peoples who had once been strangers but were now bound by shared struggle and respect. Kalen watched a child chase a human youngster across a sunlit field and felt hope swell in his heart. The galaxy had turned away. Yes, and many worlds had condemned his people. But here, among humans, the Lyrans had found a place where they could live without fear, where kindness and courage had triumphed over cruelty and judgment. He raised his eyes to the stars above, thinking of all the systems that had rejected them, all the doors that had closed. And yet, he whispered, somewhere beyond all the darkness, mercy and courage always shine. Humanity has shown us that, and we will honor it every day we live. The Lyrans had been exiled by all, but humanity had opened its arms. And in that embrace, they had found not only safety, but family, dignity, and a future that gleamed brighter than any crystal city they had ever known. And for the first time, Admiral Kalen truly believed that no matter how dark the galaxy could be, hope, together with courage and compassion, could light the way.